You see, I am a simple college student living alone in an apartment. I was very enthusiastic about the release of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver here in the States. I have purposely locked myself out of all media and the internet aside for school purposes. That means no 4chan, no Bulbapedia, and etc. As I was busy with the school year and being poor at the time, I wasn't able to buy Soul Silver on its launch date. After my school year ended, I ordered Soul Silver on Amazon. However, it would take a week for it to arrive. I decided during that time I would replay my Crystal version on my Game Boy Color. However, I realized that long ago my mom threw it away because I told her the save went dead, and I was very upset about it then. She also threw away my Silver version, so all I had is my Game Boy Color. As such, I set out to GameStop and bought a used Silver version, as it's the only Pokemon game left that they have for the Game Boy Color. $10, really cheap. I went home and started it up for a nostalgia trip. However, that's where things started getting bizarre. Most likely the reason why you read this. The Game Freak logo started up as normal, but it just froze there. I thought the cart was just errored or something, so I turned it off and on. The same thing happened. I tried pressing A and start over and over and all the buttons. Eventually the logo vanished and there was a black screen for about 5 seconds. Suddenly, rather than going to the usual menu screen, I was already in the game in a previous save file, which was odd, as I was expecting all of these carts to have been wiped out by the poor battery. Either way, I wasn't complaining, as I would have chosen the continue option to see what the previous guy did anyways. First off, I checked his trainer information. His name was just ... He didn't have much originality. I checked his profile and apparently he had 999 hours put into the game, and with all 16 badges, no. Alright, there. 99999.9 Pokédollars, and all 251 Pokemon on the Pokédex. Seeing as he apparently had Mew and Celebi logged also, I'm guessing he either used a Game Genie or was a really hardcore Pokemon player back then. I checked his Pokemon to see what Pokemon team he has. To my surprise, I saw 5 unknowns and a 6th Pokemon named Hurry. I'm thinking that this must be some cruel joke by the person who last played this game, but I decided to check the profiles of these Pokemon anyways. As expected, there were different letters of unknown, all at level 5. I was a bit shaky with my unknown alphabet at that time, but I identified the word spelled out to be Lee. As for the 6th Pokemon, it turned out to be Cyndaquil. Mind you, this is before there were individual Pokemon icons. The Cyndaquil looked normal, but it was level 5, with 1 HP left with only 2 attacks, Leer and Flash. I didn't know why they named it Hurry, but at the time I just disregarded it. The most eerie thing was that, despite my volume being at max, none of the Pokemon he had said their usual cries, just pure silence. Having enough of the team, I closed it. I was parked at what appeared to be a room inside Billsprout Tower. However, for some reason, there were no NPCs around it. Even more eerie is that the pillar in the middle didn't move at all, as if it was just leaning on its side. There was no music at all. There was no exit or ladder, or at least I thought there wasn't. I walked around for a few minutes, but can't seem to find a way out. This is certainly not a room I've been in the Bellsprout Tower before. I tried checking my items for an escape rope, but the bag was completely empty. There wasn't any wild Pokemon either. Finally, I managed to find a ladder, which turned out to be behind the pillar. The screen turned black, and the music finally started playing. I had a sudden chill as I recognized that melody I heard to be the theme you hear when you listen to the radio at the Alph ruins where the unknown are at. I immediately realized that it wasn't a loading transition, but rather I was in a dark room and would need flash. Before I took care of that though, I immediately checked my Poké Gear to change the radio to something more pleasant, but it turns out there was no radio card, or even a phone, nor time cards. There was only a map. It was only a map card in which Gold, from earlier, which I call Glow from now on, was just walking in the midst of black. I recall that Cyndaquil has flash, so I turned off my Pokégear and made Cyndaquil use flash. I didn't see any message saying Hurry has used flash or anything like that. The room just became lit, just like that, and I soon regretted it. The room was a chilling, blood red, the linear gray path heading south. The ladder I used to go up and down was not there at all. I had no choice but to head south. The screen got darker every 20 steps I made, until I finally made it to the end, which appears to be a sign. I read the sign, which said, "Turn back now." Suddenly, I was asked to answer yes or no, but there was no question asked. I chose yes, as I didn't know what it was asking. The screen went black again, making a ladder climbing sound. The unknown radio music stopped, and in a few seconds was replaced with not as creepy Poké Flute radio music. I was in another dark room, but I held my breath and used flash again. Suddenly it said that Harry has fainted, which was odd since I recalled that there was no status conditions like poison on him, and I clearly wasn't in battle. I checked my Pokemon quickly, and suddenly he's no longer in my party. In fact, after a bit of investigating, none of my Pokemon were there, but instead all replaced with level 10 unknown. I did the same thing as before and spelled out the unknown. My then team of unknown spelled he died. Either way, after that creepy change, the room was lit to reveal myself in a very small room that appears to be only 4 squares big. The walls of that room were gray bricks, as if I was inside something that was hollowed out. Outside that room appears to be a bunch of graves, similar to the ones in Pokemon Red and Blue. I've walked around that small room and pressed A, but nothing happened. I've already concluded that this was clearly a hacked game, and some sadistic sold it to GameStop. However, my curiosity kept me going. I checked the trainer profile of ... again, only to find out that the sprite was Gold. The sprite of Gold was missing his arms. He also seems to appear less smug, but rather seems more sad and empty in a way that I do not know how to describe. For some reason, it also now said that he has 24 badges, which was clearly impossible. After a few minutes of aimless wandering, my character suddenly spun and did the escape rope animation. Instead of flying up, though, my character spun downwards slowly, as if sinking. After that screen, the music stopped. After finally landing, the overworld sprite of Gold is colored differently now. Instead of the usual red color he dons, he appears completely white now, including his skin. It's as if he came straight from the colorless Game Boy games, placed into a colored background with Game Boy Color. I checked his profile, and now, while now is as red as his overworld sprite, he lost his legs and has what appears to be bloody tears from his eyes. It also says he now has 32 badges, which now starts to disturb me, as this change of numbers seems to represent something important. I also checked my Pokemon, which this team contains 5 unknown and a level 100 Celebi without a nickname. The unknown are this time level 15 and spelled out dying. I checked the Celebi's profile. It was a shiny Celebi, except there's only one half of the sprite. 1 leg, 1 arm, 1 eye. It only has 1 attack. Perish Song. The area I was in itself was a Sprout Tower with the immobile pillar as before, except everything is apparently red now. I walked north for what felt like forever. Eventually, I finally encountered some generic men and women NPC. They were all lined up to the side, just facing the long, slanted pillar in the middle. They were also white, and nothing happens when I try to speak to them. I kept on going north until eventually the pillar finally appears chopped off, with a transparent red in that spot. I went up to red, and without even pressing A, I was engaged finally in a battle. The music starts again, which it sounds like the unknown radio music but played backwards. Gold's battle's back sprite matches his front one with the bloody eyes, white skin, and lack of arms, while Red's sprite was the same as before in the GSC, except transparent. The text simply said, "Wants to battle," as if he has no name, and both of us only had one Pokemon each, which is weird, as I swore I had 6 with the unknowns. My shiny Celebi came out, conveniently with half a sprite for the back sprite also. The shiny noise, the animation was different, as the sound it made sound like multiple screech attacks used consecutively. Red sent out a seemingly normal Pikachu, male Pikachu, except he is level 255 and his sprite seems sad and has tears in his eyes. Rather than the usual fight item Pokemon run menu, I was only given the option to use the attacks. Since Celebi only has one, I chose it, naturally, since Pikachu was level 255, he went first. Pikachu is cursed, lowering his speed and increasing his other stats. I'm not even sure if Pikachu could use Curse. Celebi used Perish Song. In 3 turns, both Pokemon get KO'd. Not like I have a choice. At this point, I didn't even go back to the fight menu, as the battle just continued without me. Also, note that there were no animations at all for some reason. Pikachu used Flail, which didn't do much damage, despite his level and boost as his health was maxed. Celebi used Perish Song. Nothing happened, as it was already used. Pikachu used Frustration, which did a crap ton of damage, knocking Celebi down to less than 10 HP. Celebi used Pain Split, which surprised me, as Celebi didn't even have that attack in the first place. Now, Celebi and Pikachu have about 150 HP. Pikachu used Mean Mug. Not like that did anything. As expected, due to the effects of Perish Song, my Celebi fainted. Except in the text, it said Celebi has died. And instead of the original drop of the screen animation, the Celebi backsprite just vanished. For some reason, the Pikachu was still up, even with Perish Song, and it didn't count as my loss. Pikachu used one more different attack beyond the 5 attack limit. Pikachu used Destiny Bond. Afterward, it said, "Pikachu has died," with a slow fade-out animation. Apparently I was the winner, as a transparent red sprite showed up and said, ... At that point, I just freaked out, as the transparent red sprite was suddenly beheaded, leaving nothing but his transparent body. The battle then ended at that point and faded out, along with the music. I'm back in the overworld, with another change to Gold's sprite. He's now as transparent as Red's overworld sprite. I quickly checked Gold's profile, where this time, the only thing remains of him is his head, with the transparent skin. The head was zoomed in a bit, showing a black void in his eyes. It now stated that he now has 40 badges. I then backed out and checked my Pokemon. They were all level 20 shiny unknown, which when spelled out read "no more." I was at what I now know is next to the end. There was apparently no music playing, but for some reason I was still I still felt like something was there that could be heard. I was back in my room in New Barktown. Maybe finally I'd get to play this game properly. But who am I kidding? I knew that sadistic bucket must have done something. I walked around my room to interact with things, as I'm a bit afraid to go downstairs to see what was awaiting me down there. Note, I said walked, as while the background was moving, Gold was not moving his transparent lens at all while doing this, just floating like those ghosts you see in Diamond and Pearl. As expected, the radio, computer, and TV did not work, so I had no choice but to go downstairs. I ended up in the same lower-level room of my house. Everything appears normal, except Mom wasn't home. After failing to interact with anything in this room, I decided to go outside. To my surprise, the door leading outside at the south didn't work, and instead I just walked straight past it to avoid. I continued moving south to see what the buck was going on. My house vanished as I head out south into the void. It was creepy, as when I entered the void, the outline on Gold's transparent sprite turned white to contrast with the pitch black. Eventually, I reached a white area, and Gold's sprite turned black and transparent again. I continued south without thinking of stopping at all. After a long trek south, I finally encountered something. It was Gold's regular sprite. I talked to it. He said, "Goodbye, forever." Notably, with a space in between the forever and vanished. As that happened, it said, question mark, used nightmare, which, at that point, I would not deny that being possible. Gold did another escape rope animation, spinning slowly downwards like before. I'm now back into that small hollowed-out room, surrounded by graves earlier, or at least, I say I was back there, as there's no sprite anymore. I tried to walk around, but nothing moved, not even wall-bumping noises. I checked my trainer profile with absolutely no Gold sprite left. It said I have 0 badges, and all of the pictures of the Johto gym leaders at the bottom were replaced with skulls. I checked my Pokemon, which were all level 25 unknown. As expected, it spelled out a phrase that I dared to read. I'm dead. As soon as I went back to the overworld, the room I supposedly was in was then covered with the same blocks as the walls. I then figured out what exactly that room was when the final text said, "RIP. ... That room was a big grave surrounded by other graves. Gold has already been dead. He died presumably a few years after he defeated Red. He was a young trainer who, despite his efforts in collecting so many badges and attempts at becoming a Pokemon Master, was still unable to avoid the inevitable fate of death, and his efforts were eventually forgotten by the next generation. I was unable to escape from that text. No matter what I pressed, I tried resetting the game. The same thing happened, at which I then finally decided to give up on that horrible nightmare. After that experience, I will never look at that gimmick unknown the same way again. They say that only the first generation had folktales and legends, but the second generation have shown me how unpleasant the truth can be. I eventually enjoyed Soul Silver immensely, but I still can't unthink of that wretched game has told me. Thank you for 300 plus subscribers. May the Triforce be with you, and I'll see you guys in the next CreepyPasta reading.